Hello, nice to see you all again. I'm Zach, and we're going to be talking The Wild Robot, the latest feature from director Chris Sanders. So if you could please welcome my wonderful guests. We have writer-director Chris Sanders. We have composer Chris Bowers. We have actor Lupita Nyong'o. We have actor Mark Hamill. Before we start, we have a clip from the film.
Don't be afraid.
Whoa! Don't you need that?
I have everything I need. All power to exterior.
You call yourselves animals? Let's go!
To the island! Hurrah!
Wonderful, wonderful. Chris, with animation, I mean, casting is just so important. The voices of the actors are just everything here. And I wondered if you could speak a little bit about your casting process for this, and in particular with Lupita and Mark. Was there something that you remembered from their work in the past that made you think, oh my God, these actors are perfect for this role?
I have to say, our casting director, Christy Soper, does such a brilliant job casting this film. Full credit, absolutely. And she's not just looking for a great voice to match the characters, she's really looking for character matches. And there's no better example, I think, than Lupita with Roz, because Lupita really took the lead in deconstructing that character to understand the architecture of her particular thinking. As a robot, there's a lot of things that are going on there, and we wanted her to play believably as a robot that you could have bought from a very expensive, company, but that had humanity in it, so that we could connect as an audience, and also that we would, believably, she would be something that somebody could buy and integrate into their lives and do jobs with them and stuff like that. But in finding the thinking patterns along with Lupita, there was no recording session that I didn't leave with like a bunch of notes to apply to the scenes that we had maybe already recorded, but also to the overall arc of the character, which was an ongoing thing. Yeah, it's like amazing match, just character-wise, not just a great voice.
And Lupita and Mark, this is a slightly rudimentary question, but since I was a child, finding out how animated films are actually made, I've always been so compelled by the idea of acting to a mic and sort of that being the acting that you do. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about that process, and also the stamina it takes to come in every day and just give the same effort when you're coming into the booth.
Yeah, the work of, at least for me, the preparation for a voice role is quite similar to the preparation for any other role. You want to understand the character, their wants, and how they go about achieving what it is they want. But then the execution is quite different, because on a film, on any given day, you're working on one or two roles. But when you're working in the booth, you're working on anything and everything. So there is an athleticism that is required. And also, you can't be as precious, and you also have to rely very heavily on the vision and direction of the director. He's the one who's holding everything together, and you are catching up, and you're just one piece of the puzzle. You're not even the physical performance, So it took real trust and faith in Chris, and he's such a great communicator of where the project is and what developments had been made, and so that's how it's really collaborative in that way. You have to really partner to get to where you need to get to.
Oh, me now? Well, I'll start talking even though I've forgotten the question. One thing I love about animation is it makes every actor a character actor because they cast with their ears, not their eyes. So you're going to be able to play parts you'd never get if you were on camera. And I found it incredibly liberating to discover this part of the business that I wasn't really a part of for many years. I went to Broadway to try to get character parts and did 7 shows, but when I came back and got into the animation world, I think the real turning point for me was the Joker, because people they'd stop me, they would stop, they'd stop you in the grocery store, they go, that's not you, do the voice. So you're in Toys R Us, doing the Joker voice for some bewildered child on aisle 5. When I was contacted about this particular project, I immediately ordered the book, and I would recommend you read it. It's just wonderful. And I thought if they can capture just a small portion of this book's brilliance, we're on a winner. And they knocked it out of the ballpark. I mean, his music, the casting, everything about it, I thought, oh my gosh, this is a classic that appeals across the board, from small children to old timers like me. So I couldn't been happier to be part of it.
On the music, Chris, film composition, like many parts of the filmmaking process, is changing so much because of technology. But I think you described on this film having sort of a traditional experience composing the film. And I wondered if you can speak a little bit about that, working with Chris here, and why was that useful for this project?
Yeah, I would say probably for 2 core reasons. I mean, first, the process of working with Chris felt like it reminded me of the relationships between composer and director that I fell in love with when I was a kid and fell in love with this craft. I remember seeing videos of Steven Spielberg sitting next to John Williams at the piano, and John telling him like what the strings are going to be doing, what the themes were, what the brass are going to be doing, and articulating it in that specific and intricate of a way. And I feel like with Chris, we sat next to each other at my studio every week, once a week, and it was me going through each cue and playing them for him, and then us getting into the details of like, okay, well, what is that melody and where's that coming from? And us looking at the strings and the brass and all these things. And that level of craftsmanship when it comes to creating a score is something that, oftentimes we don't really get to experience as composers, because score is becoming more textural and kind of like a background kind of thing, and more sound designy and things like that. And so to be able to get into the orchestration and compositional process with this one was really special. And the other part of it is just how much I knew from the very beginning, with Chris talking about the score needing to be a character in this film, and there being these what he would call houses that he would build for music, where there'd be little to no dialogue, and sometimes I'd write a cue and he'd actually take more dialogue out based on how much the music was carrying a lot of the emotional narrative in those sequences. It also required music to be melodic. And for me, like, the thing that made me fall in love with film music is when I realized that I could sing a melody outside of the context of the movie and feel the same emotions and feel all of this adventure that I felt when I watched the movie. And having the space to be able to have these melodic statements and these thematic statements that then are built throughout the course of the film is something that Chris really encouraged, and I was really excited to embrace. And so to focus on those aspects of the collaboration, I felt was really special.
Wonderful. Chris, this film is very moving, but it's also very funny. There's great humor in the film. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the tricks of your trade of like pitching humor that can work for the range of audiences that are going to watch this, from young children to like adults. How do you sort of balance that?
You know, I think that in this film in particular, I jumped in and worked on the emotional like wavelengths, and this was a very interesting one because we all talked together at DreamWorks. Most of the humor is going to be landing when it comes into the animation. And animation takes a while to arrive. This film has about 50% of the dialogue that an animated film this scale would normally have. So it's got these relatively open spaces, and so much of the humor was going to be coming from the animation, and we all just agreed that it was going to take a little while longer for it to show up. And full credit to Margie and Kristen, the execs at DreamWorks. I don't know if they felt anxiety, but they didn't show it if they did, that we waited until the animation began coming in. That's really more my thing. I'm not really, a lot of times I get like invited to gag sessions. I don't do really well at those. I don't really have a lot to offer when it comes to, but the stuff I'm doing is like a little bit more long range, I think. But again, full credit to our amazing animators that they brought so much charm and so much humor through the physicality and the timing of what they do. And I think it's just the purity of animation was going on in this particular project.
And the question for you all, this is a film that's very interested in the idea of sort of chosen family and what it takes to defend that. And I wondered, why do you think that theme has resonated so much with audiences today?
Well, Chris made me aware of the fact that in most animations, the mother is missing. And the mother is missing in order for the adventure to happen, right? But this film is really an homage and a celebration to motherhood and parenting, and also to the unique bond between a mother and a child, whether biological or chosen or what. And so I think one of the reasons why it's been so well received and it's resonating is because we all can relate to being either a parent or a child, and it does so with an earnestness that is beautiful. I think oftentimes in art, when it's advanced, we get kind of highbrow and we don't want to be earnest. But the book was earnest, and I think this film is earnest, and it appeals to a pure part of ourselves that just seeks belonging and love.
And Mark, I was intrigued by what you said earlier about the book, and obviously you've worked on animated films before, and I wondered, what is it about source material that makes you think, oh, this is something I could take a punt in? What, like, is there a specific thing there that you think, oh, this could work? What is that you're identifying?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Oh, sorry, my question was, when you're looking at the source material of a film, animated film, what are you looking for that makes you think this could work?
Well, like I said, I read the book, and it's such solid source material. What I was thrilled about is they kept the illustrations were so important to the overall piece, and they kept the exact style of the drawings in the book. I also want to point out, for extra credit, that I wore animation-themed socks. These are my Beatles Yellow Submarine socks, which, of course, has nothing to do with the film, but I do love animation.
Chris, we were speaking a little bit about this earlier, that at a previous Contenders event, you spoke about the potential of a sequel happening. And I wondered if you could talk any more about that and what we could expect, when we could expect it.
There's nothing really happening at this point. I think we're just going to wait and see how this one plays out and all. But Peter did write 3 wonderful books. We did everything I think, in the first one. So this is the first book, and we were very, very careful to end this as the first book ends. And that was a bit of a trick because at this point, I'm not going to tell you exactly. If you haven't seen it, I'm not going to ruin it. But there's a certain particular arrangement of characters at the end of this that was necessary to be true to the book, and it was a trick to make sure that we could do that, but also find a way to make this absolutely like a standalone. If another one never comes along, that this one will stand alone and be satisfying and complete. So we were very, very careful to be, make sure.
I wonder if Peter knew he was going to do, when he did the first book, did he know he was going to do an additional book? It's too bad he's not here today to answer that question.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
See, I bring everything to a complete standstill. That's my job.
We'll have to ask him. We'll have to get him on the next panel. We're out of time, so thank you guys so much. And please, thank you.